This is TWiT.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly, and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.
It was in the show last week, Jason reminds me, that Apple, the rumor from Mark Gurman came out that Apple was going to accede to the EU and allow sideloading, perhaps even alternate app stores on iOS. And you immediately came to mind, Rich, because you had kind of a back and forth with the App Store on the Macintosh. At first, BB Edit was not available there because you said there would be too many limitations to what you could do. And then I guess you put a stripped down version up, and is it there now in its full-fledged beauty?
Yep. BB Edit is in the App Store. We were in the App Store day one when the App Store was first introduced, and we did our best to make a go of it. But the technology was a little bit immature. The politics were a little bit Byzantine isn't quite the right word, but there were politics. And we realized at the time, it's like, yeah, we just can't do this. Jason actually did a great piece in 6 Colors back in the day about that. And so we took a break from the App Store. And then when Apple relaunched the store for macOS Mojave, they came to us and they said, okay, what do you need? And we said, well, we need this and we need this. And it sort of boiled down to we need to be able to ship the same product to everybody so that we can give our customers the choice they want to have. Let them make the decision about where to get the app. And so we were, again, able to deliver a fully functional product in the App Store.
Was that because Apple conceded things, or?
It was more a matter of the development and OS technology advanced to the point where it was simpler for us to conform to the requirements of the App Store. They added a couple of API features that we needed. There was a little bit of grandfathering involved because we'd been in the App Store previously. And if you've been in the App Store, if you've shipped a product, you can usually make an argument with App Review, and App Review and argument, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. You can make an argument with App Review saying, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is what you approved before, it hasn't changed. And we had a few of those conversations.
I actually remember that when Apple announced its changes, they mentioned you as coming back, right? They took your name in vain, and at the time I thought we should get Rich on to see if he agrees with Apple, what Apple's ascribing. And it went pretty well. It's there are a lot of folks that within Apple who are really working hard on our behalf, and that I think made the whole thing feasible. Yeah, good. So you're going to settle a bet.
Uh-oh.
No, you're not. But
does that mean somebody's going to be mad at me if I give the wrong answer? That's usually what that means, right?
Alex Lindsay has been a strong defender of the App Store and its exclusivity. He thinks it's better for consumers. He thinks it's fine for developers. And he really, I think, I won't put words in your mouth, Alex, but you step in here. But I think you decry the whole idea of modifying the App Store in any form.
I don't know, but modifying the App Store in any form might be a little heavy-handed. But I mean, there's plenty of room for it to improve and so on and so forth. I think that the main thing that and my background a little bit for Rich, I don't think you've seen the show very much. So I've developed a few apps that are there for other companies and so on and so forth. So I've gone through the process of it, and so the thing I guess for me as a user is I don't really. I think that 99.9% of the users, given how many users there are out there, paid for something that's just like it just works. They don't want to care. They don't care. they don't care what it looks like. Yep. They just want it to work. They just want it to work. They don't want it to start to be chaos. And where I see chaos beginning is not so much with what you're doing, but when Netflix or Meta or other companies say, well, we're going to have a new store, and you can only get Facebook on our store. You can only get Instagram on our store. In fact, we're going to build up a whole bunch of other things that are connected to us. And what, for the user, what that does is it takes something away from us. We still have the choice of not going over there and using their tools. But now what's happened is by making an update to the store, Apple has basically allowed all these other companies to take something from the user that we had before. And so we are the ones that paid for everything. We as the user, we bought the apps, we bought the hardware. We are the in my opinion, the most important stakeholder, in this process. The developers are important, for the ecosystem, but the users are the stakeholder. Like, we're the ones underwriting everything. And so I think that, that's the concern that I have, is mostly if you open up the app store, or you create new app stores, or you create sideloading, that companies like Epic and Meta and Amazon and many other people build all these stores that then, as a user, I have a choice of either having to now deal with all a complexity that I didn't have to deal with before. And in light of Epic's lawsuit that they just lost today, of privacy, I have, these stores may not be the same level of security or privacy that we have with the current app store. And so I think that I think of the prism that I'm looking at it is from the user, otherwise known as the people paying for everything that we're doing here. So
the customer, as I like to call them, right?
Yeah. So I think of user because I watch too much Tron.
And we should be clear that, Rich, you don't have
an app for the user.
You don't have an app in the iOS app store, right, Rich? I mean,
we do have an app in the iOS app store. It's the iPad companion for Yojimbo on the desktop.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the app that we're known for. It's not the app that makes our living, the iOS app. Because it's really a companion component. It's not a big player.
But you do have some experience with the App Store process, then.
Yeah,
is the iOS App Store very different from the Mac App Store in that regard?
No, the experience is identical.
Okay.
I'm sure on the back end it's a different reviewer.
Yeah.
Or different reviewing department.
Well, it can't be just one person doing this. Anyway.
It could be. It could be.
Oh, okay. It's that slow.
But actually, no, counter argument. It couldn't possibly be, because nobody seems to remember anything, but I digress. Alex, I think all of your points are 100% valid and on target. I think there is a very real risk that these big players will do precisely that. They want to be able to monetize their platforms, because that's what they have, right? Netflix has a platform, Meta has a platform, Epic has a platform. They want to be able to monetize their platforms without Apple's interference, if you will. And the best way to do that is to not be tied to the App Store. I agree.
Now, on the Mac, you can do that, as you have. You can still sideload on the Mac, but you can't on iOS.
Correct.
And I guess the question...
That's mostly a legacy issue.
Right. And to your point, yeah, and that's because the Mac has its origins in 1984, right. And there's a long established pattern of user installation of the software.
Yeah, crazy. But computer users have this notion they should be able to install stuff on their computer. If Apple were to take that away, there's a lot of people, myself included, who would stop using Macs.
Well, none of these budget $1,400 laptops. I mean, when you buy the $3,000 Pro, yeah, you have higher expectations, but.
Well, and we were very worried when Gatekeeper, took over and became stronger and stronger that might be the direction Apple's taken it.
And again, I think that there's a larger number of people that are doing things. There's more peripherals. There's more things that you connect to on a Mac.
It's a
more complicated,
more heterogeneous environment.
I know. As a user, if the product has to be very unique for me to not buy it in the App Store. Like I have to look at it and go, I can't find it anywhere else because, man, opening up a computer and hitting install everything back on this computer is magical.
The user experience provided by the App Store is it's a well-crafted, very smooth experience. A non-trivial quantity of our customers prefer the App Store for that reason. It's like their updates happen. Their software is always available to reinstall when they need it. They don't have to think about their credit card or their billing mechanics. It all just happens. It just works. And I mean, that's a valid reason that's a valid preference. That's one of the reasons we're still in the App Store, is because we know that a lot of our customers want that.
I keep thinking of it as being like there are two different things at play here. One is the home field advantage of being a platform owner, and the other is the monopoly power. And I don't think I have a problem with the platform owner having a home field advantage. It is their platform. So to a certain degree, I think it's okay. The challenge, of course, with Apple is that on iOS, it's also the only option. And I think we've seen with like even what Epic tried on Android, right? They tried to just take their ball and go home. And the fact is, I think there are very few companies that have so much power and so much draw that they are willing to forego the default experience altogether in order to force you into an outside download or app store. There might be some, but I think like somebody was saying, oh, Facebook will send up their own app store and you'll have to download the Facebook app store in order to get Facebook on iOS. It's like, I don't believe it, because Facebook knows they need to be on the iOS app store, because that is always going to be number one for users, for most users who are never going to want to turn off that switch. And although an outside vendor like Facebook might have some leverage, there is a limit to the leverage. And saying you can only use Facebook's app on your iPhone if you turn off security, that Apple puts up a lot of scary dialog boxes, like it's a big move. They could try it, but I bet they're going to regret it, and they're going to be back in the App Store if they do. So I think that's the challenge, is like accepting that Apple and the Apple App Store will always have the home field advantage, but allowing people to escape from it if they choose to. Like I could imagine Amazon offering a better version of the Kindle app and the Comixology app outside of the App Store, but I can't really imagine them saying we're never going to be in the iOS App Store ever again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing is that if Apple's dogmatic approach towards taking a percentage of all revenue generated by every app released on the iPhone, if that's going to be held as just absolute dogma, that could become a poison pill for every business, for so many different businesses. And I think it's reasonable for these businesses, again, don't cry for me, Amazon, but there's for a lot of different businesses, there's a real good reason for them to ask, what did you do to earn 30% of the sale of this week's Superman comic? You did nothing. I mean, yes, you provided an environment for this app to exist, but I would also argue that Apple benefits from the Kindle app being available, and the Facebook app being available, and the Instagram app being available, and streaming game apps being available. And when you basically say that, look, our profit margins are such that we anticipate being able to make X dollars from in-game purchases or in-app content, and you basically shut that door, there's going to be kickback. And with my biggest positive thing about all of this pressure on Apple is that it is pressure that Apple almost never has to deal with. We've seen so many changes for the App Store in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years. None of them came out of the goodness of Apple's heart. None of them came after a frank and honest self-evaluation of what the policies were set when they first set up the App Store and whether they're still important or relevant now. It's because they were getting pressure from other companies, from developers, from governments across the world. So if a presence of a new app store actually happens, and all it does is basically says to Apple, okay, look, you've basically now every Facebook and Amazon and all these other companies, they have the weapon in their drawer. They can now make a decision about whether they want to actually now sideload an app, provide their own app experience, just so that they can hold on to all these in-app purchases. Apps, I think Apple now would have to respond to that in a way that's a little bit more important than what they can do now, which is to say, hey, we're Apple, we can't make us do something we don't want to do.